Horace, help us, Carter called in his mind. It's my birthday, you know, Horace answered.
What?
Aren't you going to wish me a happy birthday?
Happy birthday, Carter rushed. Now can you help us get rid of that lion lady? This explained to him how the lion goddess Sekhmet was summoned by Desjardins to hunt them down. As the new chief lector, he now had the advantage of summoning Sekhmet once in his lifetime. Seriously? Carter thought. Only once and he chooses now?
Yes, I know, Horace said. I suppose it goes to show you just how much he really hates us.
Why would someone who hates gods rely on a god to do their dirty work? Carter asked.
Beats me, Horace said. He was always quite the hypocrite.
Okay, so how do we stop her? Carter asked.
Well, I'm certain there's no talking with her, Horace said. She was born to be a killing machine. She can't be bargained with or reasoned with, and she feels no pity or remorse or fear. As far as I know, she won't rest until she gets what she wants.
And that is?
Blood.
Great, Carter thought. He started to wonder if they could find a butcher shop to lead her to, but then he just noticed a factory in the distance with a billboard on the roof that said, Magic Salsa Inc. Then Carter hatched an idea. They parked the boat right next to one of the trucks. Then they waited for Sekhmet to get closer, and then they jumped out of the way, and Sekhmet crashed right through the truck. When she came out the other end, she was covered in salsa. Blood! Tasty blood! She growled. Just as Carter hoped, she started eating up the salsa. From what Carter could recall from studying the gods, he heard stories of how people used to avoid bloodshed from Sekhmet by offering her gallons of red wine or pomegranate juice, tricking her into thinking it was blood. Turns out, the method worked just as well with salsa, because she just kept licking away the red liquid until she transformed into a peaceful-looking cow. Hathor, the cow of love. Then she collapsed and started snoring away.
Sleep well, my beloved, Horace said.
That's your wife? Carter asked.
Probably not the best time to go into detail, said Horace.
Since the boat was wrecked, they decided to borrow the truck. After getting familiar with all the gears, they drove off and headed for the pyramid. Zia had already woken up by the time they drove off. She looked at Carter and started to say, Carter, I'm sorry about, I wish the circumstances were better. Yeah, he said. I guess you'll be in a lot of trouble with the house. I may be banished and stripped of my gear, Zia said, assuming they won't kill me. Carter thought about that for a moment. He remembered her mentioning how Iskandar was like the closest thing she had to a father after her parents died. But with him being dead now, what was she supposed to do? Maybe you could come with us, Carter suggested. I can talk to Amos about it. But where would we go, Carter? She asked. Even if you defeat Set, the house will never stop looking for you. We'll figure it out, he said. I'm used to traveling all the time anyway, and Sadie's not all bad. I heard that, Sadie shouted from behind the curtains. Plus, you have amazing powers, Zia, Carter continued. You're very sweet, Carter, she said. But you don't know me. Not really. I suppose Iskandar saw this coming. What do you mean? Carter asked. When Desjardins and I left the museum that night, Zia explained, Iskandar pulled me over to talk in private. He told me that I was in danger and he wanted to take me somewhere safe and... That's odd. I can't remember what happened after. I suppose he didn't have time, or he changed his mind, and that's when he sent me to look for you in New York. Carter wasn't sure what to make of that. Maybe Zia somehow partially lost a few memories, or her memory wasn't all that good in general. Either way, he figured it probably didn't matter now. Zia was here with him now. If Iskandar wanted her to stay protected, Carter promised himself he would do just that. "Hey, by the way, what was it you needed to tell me back at the restaurant?" he asked her. "It's him!" she exclaimed. "What?" Carter asked. "Slow down, pull over!" she demanded. He didn't catch what she saw, but he did as she asked anyway. Carter immediately learned there was a difference between stopping cars and trucks. Trucks took longer to slow down, and it was even harder since it was dark. They got a knock at the door, and to their surprise, it was Amos. "How did you escape?" Carter asked. "I'll explain later," he answered. "We must keep moving before the house catches up." The further they drove, the darker and nastier the storm was. With all the crazy weather, it was about 4 in the morning before they ditched the truck and Camelback Mountain was finally in sight. The weird part was that the mountain alone was clear of the nasty storm in all directions, and the sky was full of stars. They knew they couldn't have driven the truck up the mountain, or they would have risked being detected. Amos suggested they turn into clouds. The kids looked confused, but without explaining, Amos pounded his staff on the ground, and all 4 of them turned into lumps of smoke. How to explain how they were moving? Well, it felt as if they were standing in a train car and the engine was tugging them along. As a master magician, Amos was probably doing all the work at keeping everyone together. Minutes later, they hovered over the side of the mountain and transformed back into humans again. They stood in front of a crevice between 2 large boulders. Supposedly, this spot was familiar to Amos due to his previous visit. In less than a minute, they entered the hollowness of the mountain, and there was the Red Pyramid. Sadie almost thought they were back in the land of the dead again, only because of how horrifying the place looked. The cavern seemed about 50 stories high, and even though they couldn't see the bottom, they could see fire pits surrounding the pyramid. There must have been hundreds of demons standing around, gazing at the pyramid, and Sadie was just relieved no one noticed them. Yet. Then, they just noticed how all the demons were watching as a flying boat hovered towards the pyramid. On the boat, carried by 2 demons, was the Golden Pyramidion. Behind them was Face of Horror himself. That only left them with one question. Where was Set? But right now, they needed a plan to stop the demons before the pyramid was complete. Amos suggested they transform into clouds again, but everyone else quickly vetoed the idea. Then, Carter and Sadie suggested they turn into birds again. Carter turned into a falcon again, and Sadie turned into a kite again. Amos turned into a bat for whatever reason, and Zia took out a shakti that turned into an eagle large enough to ride on. They flew around the pyramid, and Zia's eagle knocked the 2 demons overboard and the Pyramidion with them. "Ew!" Face of Horror growled. Before he could think, all 3 Kanes knocked him overboard, no spells required. Then, Amos jumped onto the boat, changed back, and spotted winged demons flying toward them. Amos told the kids to go inside the pyramid and find their dad while he stayed and kept the demons busy. It wasn't too hard to notice. There was just a simple doorway on one side of the pyramid. The siblings changed back, and Zia's eagle turned back into clay and turned to dust. Amos sealed the entrance behind them with a giant block of rubble, preventing the demons from following them. Where the burial chamber should have been in a regular pyramid, the dark hallway led into a huge throne room with a giant-sized chair. At the foot of the throne was Dad's coffin. "Dad!" Sadie cried. "Huh? No, wait, hold on," Carter warned. Before Sadie could get close, "Slay him!" Amos dropped down between them and the coffin. "Amos?" Sadie asked. How did you..." He looked up with a face full of pain, and his eyes were literally glowing red behind his glasses. He tried to speak, but he sounded like he was suffocating. "Run!" Then, red vapor spewed from his body. A tower of smoke swirled in front of him and evaporated, revealing a tall, red-skinned man with the head of a familiar canine monster. "Well," he said in a deep, spine-tingling tone,
I suppose this is the part where Zia gets to say, "I told you so." Confused, Carter? He asked. Well, it wasn't a full possession. Gods can exist in many different places at once, in so many unimaginable ways. Horace can tell you that, if he were being honest. I don't get it, Carter said. So you've been possessing him since the night at the museum? You've been inside him that whole time, even before he took us in? Very good, said Hubert. But why? If you wanted us dead, why didn't you just kill us back in London? Why bother taking us to Brooklyn and telling us everything? Did he even know you were possessing him? Well, Amos did put up a good fight. I only chose him because, as you know, we gods always preferred the blood of the pharaohs. There were some things I could not make him do without destroying his existence completely. I didn't want to break my new plague thing so soon. As anger stirred up inside Carter, Horace spoke up again. Carter, you must give me full control now. What? No, said Carter. I got this. No, you don't, Horace warned. If we don't act now, everyone you love is going to die. Oh, poor Horace, said Teast. Still struggling with your little training wheels, are you? Well, that's too bad. For once, both Carter and Horace had the same feeling at the same time. Rage. Carter swung his sword and a mystic fist rocketed into Set, pushing him forward and collapsing his throne. Set burst out of the rubble laughing. It'll take more than a little punch in the stomach to put a scratch on me. You realize you've only helped me increase my power by being so stupid enough to come here. I have harnessed your father's power to make me stronger, and I shall do the same with all three of you here. Once I've sucked you all dry, it'll be enough for my storm to envelop the world. Wait a minute. What do you mean all three of us? Carter asked. Only me and Sadie have... Then, all eyes were on Zia. Yes, my lovely Netvis, Set said. Then, Set pointed at the siblings and they telekinetically slammed into the wall and were pinned down. With his other hand, Set lifted Zia into the air. Your form does not do you justice, Set said, but your choices were limited, weren't they? Oh, my beloved Netvis, in the beginning of time, you were born as my precious baby sister. But in another lifetime, in another reincarnation, you were reborn as my treacherous wife. And now, you shall make quite a delicious appetizer. True, you were always the weakest of us, but you're still one of the five, and there's always power in collecting the complete set. He paused and grinned. The complete set. Now that's funny. And now I shall have the pleasure of consuming your energy. Carter had no idea how Zia could be the host of Netvis. If she were, he was sure he would have noticed, or at least Horus and Isis would have sensed it and warned them. Zia's magic was amazing, but not overkill, so what exactly got Set into thinking that? Suddenly, Zia's arm broke free and burned Set's face with a fire spell, breaking Carter and Sadie free. Set backed up and seemed confused. What? What sort of trickery is this? How did you... You will not possess her, Zia said. What have you done with her? Set growled. He didn't wait for an answer. Instead, he swatted her away, but Sadie caught her with a wind spell. Carter, please, we're out of time, Horace warned. We must join together as one, now. For once, Carter agreed. His friends and uncle were flat on the floor. No other help was coming, and if he didn't hurry, everyone was going to die.